Okay, we're live once again.
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
good to see you.
Good to see you too. What a beautiful day here.
Yes, it
And
is.
we have a guest, and we're going to introduce him here in a minute. Let's just give it a second or two. Let the audience build, as they say, when you're doing this Facebook Live stuff. And very excited. Today's going to be a really good day.
Yes, it is.
I can feel it. I can sense it.
Yeah, and Neil, we're so happy to have you here with us.
Yes, we'll probably say that 3 or 4 times.
Yeah,
All right, are you ready?
go ahead.
Here we go.
You ready?
Yes.
Welcome once. All right, here we go. In 3, 2, roll. Welcome once again to Good Health by Claudia, podcast number 3, episode number 3. It is, I'm Denny Schaefer. It is a production of Denny Radio. This, of course, is Claudia. You get to watch it and you can hear the podcast once we download it and all of that. You see another person with us wearing a doctor's coat or of some sort or his health food coat. He is Neil Levin from Now Foods. He's a senior nutrition educator and formulator for the company.
Correct.
He's been doing this a long time, since 1973.
A long time, man.
So you must know a lot about all of this stuff. Neil, welcome to the podcast videocast.
Thanks, Denny and Claudia. Good to be with you. Yeah, I've been doing this a long time. I started in 1973 working in co-ops, and I've worked for really private companies ever since. Right now, I'm working for the largest family-owned business in the natural products industry.
Yes.
Which is something we're very proud of.
We're very proud of that. We're so happy you guys are still family owned since 1968, correct?
Correct. And they just announced they've added some new family members as shareholders. There's about 50 family members as shareholders who are all descendants of the original founders.
That is, the fact that you guys are family owned, but that you've had longevity in this industry, that is such an amazing thing. I have great respect for that. And you guys are a top-notch quality company. So that's one of the things that we want to talk about today is the quality of not only Now Foods, but generally in our industry. There's a lot of wonderful integrity in our industry. So where do you want to start? Should we?
Well, let me ask you this, Neil. Were you just basically born into the health food industry, like by family? You were raised this way, and you didn't have a choice?
No, it was actually a choice. When I was in college in 1972, living in a dorm, I, for spiritual reasons, decided to become a vegetarian. And next month, mid-November, will be my 50th anniversary of that, being a vegetarian.
That's amazing. Beautiful.
And so what happened was I was living in the dorm and I was wondering what I could eat. And I asked the cafeteria folks and they didn't know what to tell me. And they sent me to the housing people and they didn't know what to tell me. They told me to go to the health food store and ask somebody. This is 1972. It's, you'd think that a university would have dietitians and people who would know what to do. What they offered me was that I could go a half a mile out of my way, away from my dorm, away from my classes, for all my meals, go to the basement of the student clinic, and they would open cans of vegetables and feed me my meals. And my response, I remember it clearly, was, I don't know anything about nutrition, but that just does not sound right.
Now, especially if you paid for the meal plan, because those aren't cheap, and then you're not even going to use it. So I just wanted to ask that question about.
No, I'm glad you asked. So yes.
So now, where do you want to start, Claudia?
Well, our industry, for years, people have been told that we're an unregulated industry and all this stuff, and it simply is not true. Neil has been formulating for the company. How many years have you been formulating now?
For now, I've been formulating close to 25 years.
And so there's a lot of quality control and knowledge that goes into these formulations. So Neil, let's talk about the quality of Now Foods and our industry as a whole.
Yeah, we've got just a quality control team of over 160 people. We've got over 200 people in our quality and technical departments, including R&D. We have a method development group. We actually develop and publish methods that are used by industry. The official method for glucosamine testing, for example, is a method that was developed solely by scientists at Now. And so
Yes.
we're developing methods, we're validating methods, we're sharing methods. Our products have been used in hundreds of studies. And the reason they're being used in studies is because we can provide all the documentation needed by the
Yes.
scientists who do not want variables in quality and identity when in the raw materials they're using in clinical studies. They need to eliminate variables. And so we can provide the materials that are used. One example quickly is Florida State University has done several studies on arginine and citrulline and their effects on blood pressure and things like that. And they're using our materials because we can provide the quality and materials they need and the documentation they need for a relevant quality study. And we're not designing the studies, we're just providing the materials.
So the issue of developing supplements, for most people, they come into a store, they see a product they want, they buy the bottle, they take it home. But there's so much that goes into preparing that formulation, quality control. So when you guys bring in raw material to make all these different products, how many tests does it go through for quality?
Well, we're doing about 30,000 tests a month. I mean,
Yes.
literally. It's a huge number of testing. And before we can order from a supplier, we have to qualify the supplier as following good manufacturing practices, GMPs.
So let's talk about what that means.
Yeah, so that means we have to audit them, or they have to have an auditor that we recognize as maybe they're certified ISO or some other quality certification that we can
Yes.
rely on. Otherwise, we have to literally send an auditor to them and make sure they're following quality procedures, documentation procedures, cleanliness, etc. And then once they're qualified as a supplier, we have to qualify each raw material separately. And if it's a botanical, for example, it has to undergo testing for identity, the components that we're looking for, the actives. We look for adulterants, we look for irradiation, we test for micro contamination, we test for heavy metals, we test for certain other things. On proteins, we're testing for melamine and steroids, for example, just to give you a brief example. And so each raw material gets tested. All of our botanicals, by the way, are tested for pesticides. And we're using the most advanced pesticide testing, which we've actually developed new methods for that are used by industry. And one concern there is that looking for pesticides, some of them could be hidden by the pigments or other components of the botanical. And for example, on hawthorn, about half of the pesticides that were not able to be identified, some 36 pesticides, we've cut that number in half with new advanced methods that we're sharing with industry. We've published a new method for testing krill oil and the freshness and quality of the krill oil. Chondroitin sulfate, we've published a method that can distinguish between different sources, so we can make sure it's not shark, it's not pig, it's not something else, it's bovine as specified.
Yes.
Which is what's used in the studies. And there's different components, different ratios of components in each source, so it does make a difference in bioavailability and efficacy. We just do a ton of testing. There's literally dozens of quality steps involved in testing a raw material once it comes in. And we test every lot. We don't do skip lot testing.
Right. Right. Yeah, you guys do a wonderful job. Of course, we have a lot of your products in our store. Of course, all the years that I worked at Bassett's, Now Foods had a big,
Right.
had a big presentation there, so we do as well. But we're really proud to offer your company, and you guys do a great job. I'm curious, how many products do you offer? Because we have a lot of them, but we don't have all of them. How many actually do you formulate?
It's around 1,500 products.
Yeah.
And by the way, our labs are third-party certified. So we meet ISO, International Standards Organization standards, which is the requirement by foreign governments, for example. So we actually have the same certification as a contract or third-party lab.
So when they say that the health food industry is not regulated, with everything you just told us, you're doing it yourself. you're regulating yourself. You're making sure these products are what they
Yes.
are. And so you are regulated, even though they say, well, they're not regulated. So would you agree with that statement?
Well, yes, there's usually a footnote, sometimes hidden in the statement, we are not regulated as an industry. And that's,
Right.
we are not regulated like drugs. We are not regulated
Correct.
as drugs.
Right.
And they think because our bottles of pills look like bottles of drugs, that they are just as toxic and dangerous as drugs. And that's ridiculous when there's rarely a single death a year that can be really blamed on dietary
Right.
supplements, not just an
Right.
association. I mean, if I took a supplement and walked in front of a bus and there was a report, it would show that on the report. They would do a toxicology report and say, yes, he took a multivitamin. But that doesn't mean the multivitamin caused it. It's an association, not a cause. So, there's only been about 15,000 serious adverse events with dietary supplements over going back to 2008 or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
which is a tiny amount. There's thousands and thousands every year for drugs and medication.
Yes. A
There's almost
pharmaceutical
never
harm.
a
Yes.
death. And if you're looking at food categories, because dietary supplement is regulated as a special food, uh, other food categories cause far more deaths. We're looking at allergies and food poisoning causing tens of thousands of deaths every year. And they are not being called to be regulated and have pre-approval by FDA and all that stuff that they're saying for supplements for conventional foods, including shellfish and peanuts and everything else that are actually causing these problems
Right.
for certain people. Yeah, I had peanut butter in my smoothie this morning. I'm not saying it's not for anyone, but if they're going to regulate based on safety, there are certainly other food categories that are more worthy of being regulated like that. Now,
Yes.
the good manufacturing practices requiring us to identify and test all raw materials is in the law. It is in federal regulations. It is in the good manufacturing practices, which were authorized by law. Labeling is tightly controlled by law. We have even the
Yeah.
size of the font is regulated on there, what has to be on there. So things are regulated very much, and we're required to submit to the FDA our label claims. So if we're making a structure function claim, not a drug claim, but a claim that it supports healthy, normal body structures and functions, which is allowed under the law, then we have to submit that in writing to the FDA when we market a product, so they know our products and our claims. When we export, we need a certificate of free sale from the federal government to allow us to export products to 100 countries around the world, that they say that you have legal labels, that our labeling is compliant with federal regulations. So anything we import, we have to notify the government in advance, Department of Homeland Security, that it's coming in, so they know what's coming and what to
Right.
look for and how to test it. So this is all very tightly regulated. The problem is enforcement, not that there's a lack of regulation, but the enforcement is lacking
Yes.
because there's more serious problems. If we're not causing a lot of illness and death, why should they devote a lot of resources to this industry
Right.
when there's certainly a lot of more pressing problems that they
Yes,
can
and that's a
address?
very important point. In health food stores, all the years of knowing other owners, it's kind of a sad joke in our industry. Somebody can be on, 12 different meds and they start taking whatever, echinacea. And if they have some kind of a weird reaction, they're going to blame it on the echinacea. It's like, well, what about the other 12 drugs they were on that are all known side effects? So it's these conversations I think are very important because people deserve to know the truth. They deserve to hear the truth from people that really know what they're talking about. So let's talk about DSHEA for a moment, because that was a really pivotal moment in the history of the United States in regard to supplementation and the ability for people to access products and the education that go with them. And of course, at that time, I think there were for many years we had over 10,000 mom and pop health food stores in the United States, and they were
Right.
able to get that law passed up against
Hmm.
all odds through sheer dedication and heartfelt commitment to protect these products and the education. So let's talk about DSHEA for a moment.
Yeah, well, DSHEA, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, passed in mid-October 1994. I'm one of the people who lobbied for it, who spoke at the Federal Plaza for it.
Yes.
I was running the largest health food store in Chicago at the time, and we had a blackout day where we put black curtains over the supplements and
Yep.
explained the risks they were in before people were allowed to buy them, and asked them to either call with our phone or sign a petition, and we got a lot of people to do that. It's a law that was a compromise. The supplement industry agreed to give up certain things in exchange for having the right to sell products. And one of the impetus, and I'll give a real life example, the FDA had seized a shipment of vegetable oil. It was I believe it was evening primrose oil or one of those kind of
I
GLA
think it was
containing
even,
oils
yes, I think,
that had vitamin E as an antioxidant, a preservative in the capsule. And the government seized a shipment and ordered it destroyed, saying that it was a vitamin E supplement with an unapproved food additive. And that's the kind of rationale they were using then. They were calling nutritional oils and things like that unapproved food additives and treating
yes.
them like they were foreign chemicals. And it ended up getting thrown out of court, but we could see the aggressiveness of the FDA in attacking our industry. So some of the things that we gave up were the ability to make any drug claims, even if they're legitimate. We're not allowed to say that a drug will lower cholesterol, a supplement will lower cholesterol like a
Right.
drug. The
Right.
labeling itself can turn a supplement into a drug if it uses a drug claim. The COVID claims that some supplement companies were illegally making in the last
Right.
couple of years, the
Yes.
FDA went after those companies saying you are making a claim to treat a disease that turns your product into an unapproved drug. You must stop doing this. And they stopped some companies, they seized some products, they had injunctions to force people out of the industry. So they have enforcement mechanisms when they want to use them, when they feel there's enough reason. We also agreed to let the government dictate good manufacturing practices and to restrict ingredients to ones that were already on the market, and any new ones had to be notified to the FDA prior to selling them so they could object to them and look at the safety of them. So you had to submit safety information and your label before you market a product with a new ingredient. So there are these kind of things going on that we agreed to in order to have this new category called dietary supplements instead of
Yes.
food supplements. So they can mandate the labeling, they can mandate the ingredients, the quality testing, all that stuff is controlled by the FDA, and marketing as well, which is controlled jointly with the FTC. There's additional laws that we actually supported. One is allergen labeling. There's now 9 allergens required to be on the labels if they're
Right.
associated with the ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
Adverse event reporting, we supported that. And I mentioned earlier there were something like 15,000 adverse event reports over decades, which is a really tiny number when you get that many a year for maybe one food. So there's a lot of regulation, FDA Modernization Act and all these other things that we are subject to regulation by something like 7 or 8 federal agencies.
That's a lot of regulation too. And the companies that are good quality, good integrity, they're obviously following all those regulatory responsibilities. There's always, people always say, well, there's companies in your industry that, we tend to weed out the bad players because, like you said, in regard to the last couple of years, companies that were making claims, we always teach our customers, we do not make claims. We're here to educate. We always talk about what tools support the body, not how to cure something. So we're always about education and on the support side. But, it's interesting when you talk about what we've dealt with over the years with FDA. I remember because we did blackout as well. That was a big deal. And we had hundreds of people sign the petition. So I forget how many millions. I think they received like 1 million signatures on that bill. And we were able to get it through. But I remember when Joe Bassett was talking to some senators in Washington, in DC. And I remember one conversation very clearly, it was the distinction between if you take an herb and you make a tea, then it's a food. But if you take the same herb and put it in a capsule, it changes what it's called. They refer to it as what? A medicine. Is that, I don't know if you've ever,
Well,
did you?
yeah,
So,
it's either a dietary supplement or a medicine at that point, or a drug at that point. Yeah.
yes. And so Joe, I remember Joe very clearly saying, well, what's the difference if you drink a tea, but then you put the same thing in a capsule? But it changed the whole dynamic of the product. So back to the labeling, there's so much that goes into the labeling of what you guys have to do. And, with some of these allergens, we use that actively every day. People have so many issues anymore with shellfish and peanuts and wheat and, whatever, gluten, all these things. It is nice to have it right on the label so they can feel safe about and comfortable about taking a particular product.
Yeah, I mean, I consider it guilt by association. If you take something, like you said, you could take peppermint tea or chamomile tea and you put the same thing in a capsule, it looks like a drug. So it's guilt by association. It's not actually a drug.
Exactly. But that's what that senator thought when he was talking to Joe Bassett. And that's why Joe was trying to tell him, no, it's a food. Whether you drink it or you put it in a capsule, it's a food in the body to nourish it. So it was a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, and sorry. So if you're just joining us, people that are watching on Facebook, this is Neil Levin with Now Foods, and he's been in the industry since 1973. Neil, let me ask you this: 1973 to 2022. So that's what, 49 years ish, somewhere in there. How has the industry changed from when you first started to where it is now? And and this is one of those long questions. And how has, is the industry better off, doing more good? Your thoughts on all of that?
Well, when I started, the industry was really two industries. There was a dietetic food store that sold pills and canned foods and packaged foods. And that was for people, they had the Seventh-day Adventist brands, Loma Linda and Worthington with vegetarian products for people who wouldn't eat meat for religious or medical reasons, full of chemicals at the time and stuff like that, MSG, artificial. And, but that's where you would buy your vitamins or your special supplements for your special diets. Then there were the co-ops and the family-owned health food stores that were more food-oriented. And sometime in the 70s, they started merging. And we started having these more what we consider now the natural product stores, natural food stores, health food stores. So, they kind of morphed. The dietetic stores kind of went away, and these hybrid health food stores came about, and they were into more natural. So some of them would still carry the bad ingredient, I would call them, special diet foods, and some still do. But a lot of stores started having natural standards and started being more about educating about diet and reading Adele Davis and various books about how to manage your diet properly for different health issues and things like that. So over time, it became more like that. And then we started getting what they call the supernatural stores, Whole Foods and all these other big chains that would come with larger grocery store type formats, and even change the industry more, where today you can go into any grocery store in the country and find natural products, which was not the case 40 or 50 years ago.
But what you don't find in those mass market stores is the heart, the dedication, and the education. So that's what I'm proud of, that the independent stores, health food stores in this country, that's our focus. We are all about education. And it's interesting. I have customers that will tell me they saw natural products that were in some mass market grocery store. They're thrown in a bin and they're all marked down to $1 because nobody knew what to do with them. Nobody knew how to educate anybody because the heart and the dedication was not there. So that's why we always encourage people, wherever you are in your neck of the woods, go find a local health food store, support them, and enjoy the education that you will find in a store that really is about the heart and soul of what we're about, which is education all the way across.
Yeah,
so it's health food store, but it's also like class, so to speak. There's the education part because you can't have one without the other.
Well, I mean,
that's
you can,
but that's not beneficial to your customers. And don't you always do classes and different things at your store where people will come in? And
so in fact, we just did our first class Wednesday night for the first one in the last 2 years. And we had a wonderful turnout, and it was wonderful. It was so exciting because for the last year, so many customers have been saying, when are you going to start classes? When are you going to start classes? People, I really believe in the United States that people are thirsty to learn information and education about natural health and how to reclaim their health naturally and safely. We deal with it all the time. So every customer that walks through the door, we're educating them. But yes, we do classes as a whole.
So let me give you a personal testimony. So we started this a couple of weeks ago. This is episode 3, Neil. So Claudia, she's not pushy. Well, she's pushy in some ways, but she's not pushy, towards people like me and people that just don't know. And we were talking about how bad sugar is and processed foods and processed sugar. And it got me thinking about how much of that I put in my body. And I've been having quite an emotional roller coaster because I'm keeping my weight down because I'm getting my steps in every day, anywhere from 10 to 12,000 steps. So I'm keeping my weight down. So I'm rewarding myself with dessert every night.
Yeah.
So every night after I have a meal, I'm having cookies, I'm having ice cream, every now and then a Butterfinger candy bar. Well, so Claudia started telling me about what that could be doing. You brought up that book last week that we were talking about.
We were talking about the yeast syndrome.
Yeah, I just found out that I'm yeasty. She tells me I'm yeasty. I'm like, okay. So
I think most people are yeasty, by the way.
For last week, after our episode, I cut out all of that.
Good for you.
I haven't had a cookie, no ice cream, no candy or anything for a week. And she put me on a probiotic for men and older dudes like me, because I'm 63. So I'm like, well, okay, let's try this. Let's see how it is. And it's been a week. I've had the best week emotionally that I've had in a long time.
Very, very good.
The anxiety, it's not gone away, but the anxiety is not like what it was. I'm sleeping better. I'm feeling better. And I'm spending more quality time in the bathroom. And I think that's because of the probiotic I'm on. I don't know if that's a fact.
No, it's all working together.
It's healthier.
Right.
And in just a week of making that change. Oh, she also told me I'm A positive in my blood type. So she said, you really shouldn't be eating red meat. So I've had no red meat in the last week. It's been all chicken, turkey.
Good.
And I am feeling better in just a week from just cutting out the sugar. And just, I'm thinking more about what I'm putting into my body. And to me,
then we're doing our job. Because that's what I mean. It's all about.
I could never get that if I went to a chain store and they had a bunch of natural products all over the place, but there's no one there to say, like you said, what's your blood type? I told her. She said, well, red meat is not good for you. You should be chicken, fish, and turkey, which I love fish. I love chicken. Turkey's okay. You're not going to get that when you walk into a big chain store. And that's why it's important that you guys continue to fight the fight that you guys are fighting, because if pharmaceuticals had their way, you guys would be eliminated. You wouldn't be able to do what you do.
We would have been gone a long time ago without those original mom and pop stores. They fought the fight. They stood with dedication, and they, and when we passed to Shea, that was a shift in the industry, don't you think, Neil? Because then it became validated that we were a real industry, and all these mass market companies started showing up to buy our companies.
It is. And, they are competition. There are lots of mom and pop stores that have gone out of business. When I started with Now Foods in 1997, our business was about 85 or 90% independent health food stores.
Yes.
Now it's under a single digit percent that
It's
are
very
still left.
sad.
So,
Wow.
there's a difference in not only the service you get, because the mass market, the big grocery store type health food stores, natural product stores, do not want to give you service. They actually instruct their employees not to give nutritional advice and do anything that would potentially put the company at risk. The other thing is, a lot of these big chains, they have once a year you can pitch a product to them in a certain category. So they are not looking for new products. They're not fast to pick up new products. They're not cutting edge in terms of finding new things that are effective and that are hitting the news because of good studies and other things that are driving consumers to want to get those products. And so you have to go to the independent health food store to find those things. They are specialty stores with independent ownership, and they're willing to try new products and to keep up on the research, which the big
Absolutely.
chains are not interested in at all.
Right. Right.
All right, we got about 5 minutes left. Claudia, what else would you want
Well,
to touch on with Neil before we're done?
Neil, we could talk for hours about a lot of things, but what comes to mind? Where do we want to go?
Well, I'll mention that now is not, while we compete with other brands, we actually cooperate with other brands. We work with industry trade associations. We freely share our methods that we develop. And some of them, as I mentioned, have become industry standards and even national or international standards. And we work very closely with a lot of competitors, even on trade associations like the regional one that Claudia is well familiar with, the Midwest one.
We served together on one of the boards, yes.
Where we served on the boards, and also some of our competitors who are also friends of mine. And I was a retailer for many years, so I'm still friends with many people that I'm now theoretically competing with, but we're competing fairly. We're not bad-mouthing each other's companies.
Exactly.
A lot of times I'll give a lecture or something and I'll say, now I may be the only company trainer who will tell you this, but we don't have the only probiotic that's good. We don't have the only whatever that you should use. There are other good options out there. We'd like you to consider ours, and here's some reasons why. But our competitor products are not bad.
So, and I just want to say before we come to a close, God bless Elwood Richards. He was the founder and the visionary of the company. He passed just a couple years ago, didn't he?
Yeah, he passed away just a few years ago. He had a long-standing lung ailment from a contamination issue when he was a chemistry student.
He was a wonderful man, heart of gold, just great integrity. And that's that leadership has shown in the company. So now real quick, I just want to say you're going to be giving a class at our store Wednesday, November 2nd. And we're going to be talking about essential oils, quality of them, how to use them properly. So we're really excited, Neil, that you're going to be coming to Toledo and giving that class for us.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Anyone that's interested, our classes are always prepay $5 and they're worth.
Whoa, $5. That's a little steep.
Oh,
steep.
People always say to me, Jesus, class, you should have charged $100 for it. But again,
do they have to sign up for it then ahead of time? Do they go to go into the store? Do they go to your website, healthfoodsbyclaudia.com?
Coming in the store and paying it ahead of time. And, we keep it simple. Neil, thank you so much. I love you dearly. I respect you greatly, and many blessings.
Likewise, look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
All right, Neil, take care, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Denny.
Well, what do you think?
That was pretty good.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
Don't you love technology? Where is he right now?
I'm working on it.
Well, she hates. Okay, for those of you that are watching,
I can't even keep my headphones.
She hates the headphones on because she's very animated. She's already moving. So I have an idea what we can do for our next one, and I'll explain that to you when we get done.
All right.
Now, where is he? What part of the country is he in? I suppose I could have asked him.
I should have. I think he's in Illinois. I think
Illinois. Oh yeah, because he said Chicago, so
yeah,
maybe
Chicago,
he's not that far.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but man, what knowledge that he has, and it's so true that without the education, supplements, you might as well just be taking nothing, because if you don't know, like there's an order, there's a certain thing that you do, right? You don't just start on 15 different things. Exactly. You got me on a probiotic.
Right.
And I take other vitamins, and one day I'm going to come into your store, or I'll have you look at it before you leave the house here, of all the different things that I'm on with fish oil and all the other stuff. But if you don't get the education,
right,
then you're missing the most important ingredient. You could be taking something with something else that may not complement each other. You know, you got to start at the basic. And a lot of it's trial and error. Like I was really paying attention this week, because you're in my head, Claudia, about any processed sugar or any of that. You're making me think about like we went to lunch with my son yesterday, and we were going to a Coney Island. So when we're on our way there, I pull up their menu because I want to see what they got. So I'm mentally prepared. You know, do they have, like, broiled fish, or do they have, chicken sandwich without all the breading, just something I could,
right,
salad, stay away from. I mean, I want a bacon cheeseburger, but I know that I'm not going to feel good after. And I notice that when I eat something now, I'm starting to pay attention to how I feel after I eat it.
I love that.
And I go, okay, maybe I shouldn't have that, because my goal is to feel good every day. That's what people want.
Exactly.
And I am just stunned. I mean, I'm going to be honest. Every now and then I'm going to have some ice cream. My daughter works at Handles. My favorite ice cream is Spouts Like a House.
Yep.
I'm not giving that all the way up, but I'm not going to do it 2-3 times a week like I was doing in the past.
Exactly.
It's going to be maybe once a week, but I've made it a full week without any sugar.
I'm very proud of you.
I'm really
proud of you for that.
I've been eating a lot of fruit. So after I eat, I have a sweet tooth. So I'll grab a couple grapes, pop them in, and it satisfies me.
Right.
Right. And so I'm able to say, okay, that's good. And I feel better, and I'm sleeping better.
Well, and this is a big deal, because a lot of people are struggling with sleep issues. I mean, it's bad. I mean, we have so many people of all ages, they're not sleeping, and there's numerous reasons why.
Right.
But the first foremost thing we always teach people, it's what you're putting in here in the gut.
Yeah.
Because the gut is affecting, as I keep talking about, the brain, the digestive system, the endocrine system, the immune system. That's the whole body. That's everything that's regulating everything. I might have to.
You want to break that headset, don't you? You just want to throw it off.
And I can't make it smaller, so it keeps.
I got an idea. We'll talk about it when we're done.
What I want to say is, we're teaching.
Look at the camera. Talk to the people.
We're teaching people, just be mindful each day. That's all. Mindful about how you nourish yourself, how you nourish others. This is how we make positive change in the United States. When we support it for ourselves and everybody else around us, now things will start to shift in a very positive, beautiful way. My mother always said, the nurturing ourselves is a beautiful form. I mean, it's love. It comes down to love. How much do you love yourself and others? Because everyone wants to feel well.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to feel crummy. So, but it takes education and dedication. And so, and none of us do it perfect. But when we're mindful about what we do each day, which is what you're learning, that makes a huge change for in our own health. So
awesome.
Beautiful thing. Anyway, thank you, everybody.
Yes, share the podcast, share the video. Good Health by
always,
Claudia podcast.
Share your love, share the light.
Thank you, Neil.
Yep. Thank you, Neil, and everybody listening.
All right. We'll see you next time, people.
Peace.
Tell your friends.
Peace.